The silence was a lie. It was a beautiful, humid afternoon, the kind where the air hangs heavy with the scent of chlorine and possibility. My little niece, Lily, splashed giggling in the shallow end, her joy a bright, happy counterpoint to my own simmering exhaustion. Then the silence broke, shattered by the shriek of a woman I'd only ever seen from a distance. The notorious Brenda from the HOA board. "You! Get out of this pool! You're trespassing!" Her voice, sharp as a broken shard of glass, cut right through the calm, making Lily freeze mid-splash. My heart hammered against my ribs. What? The audacity, the sheer, unbridled nerve of it all. I just moved in with my Aunt Carol, who owned this place for 30 years, and Brenda was already staking her claim, asserting her petty dominion over a patch of water. I stood up, my feet touching the slick pool bottom, water dripping from my shoulders. "Excuse me?" I asked, my voice calm, belying the fire building in my gut. "I have no idea who you are, but my aunt lives here." Her eyes narrowed to slits. "I know who you are, or rather, who you're not. You are not a homeowner here. You are not on the list. This pool is for residents and their registered guests only. And you, honey, you are trespassing. The sheriffs are on their way." She said it with a smirk that made my blood run cold. She actually called the sheriffs? For this? What kind of twisted existence was this? I took a deep breath, a shaky inhale that did nothing to calm my nerves. What a cruel, ridiculous world this was, to have people like her policing happiness. I looked over at Lily, who was now clutching the side of the pool, her small face etched with confusion and fear. That's when I decided, no more nice guy. Not today. Not for Brenda. Brenda stood there, hands on her hips, a triumphant look on her face, as if she just single-handedly saved the neighborhood from a dangerous criminal. A few other residents, drawn by the commotion, watched from a safe distance, their expressions a mix of discomfort and morbid curiosity. Then, the distinctive sound of a siren grew louder, a wail that felt far too big for this little suburban drama. A patrol car pulled up to the curb, and 2 sheriffs stepped out, their uniforms crisp and their demeanors all business. My stomach did a tight flip. This was it. Brenda's moment of glory. She straightened her back, her chin lifted high. "Officers, thank you for coming. This young woman is trespassing. She doesn't live here and she's not an authorized guest. I've tried to reason with her, but she refuses to leave." She pointed a manicured finger at me, the motion full of self-righteous fury. One of the officers, a tall man with a calm, steady gaze, approached me. "Ma'am, can you confirm your address?" he asked, his voice low and professional. I gave him my aunt's address. Brenda scoffed. "She's just a visitor. I'm telling you, the HOA rules are very clear. She can't use this facility." The other officer pulled out a device, a quick search, then looked back at his partner. A look passed between them, a silent exchange that was as telling as a shout. The first officer turned back to Brenda, a new note in his voice. "Ma'am, you are a member of the HOA for this community, correct?" Brenda beamed. "That's right. As a member of the board, I'm responsible for enforcing the rules." The officer held up a hand. "I understand that, but I also need to inform you that the property at Aunt Carol's address is not, and has never been, part of your HOA." My heart skipped a beat. A gasp rippled through the onlookers. Brenda's face went slack, her triumphant smile vanishing in an instant, replaced by a look of utter, profound shock. My aunt, a quiet woman who usually avoided any sort of conflict, stepped out from the garage, her presence a surprising twist in this bizarre play. "Brenda," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "I told you this when you first moved in. Our little corner of the street was never annexed into the HOA. We have our own private water line, our own sewage, and yes, our own private pool. It's on our deed." She held up a document. The sheriffs looked at each other, then back at Brenda, whose face had gone from shock to a pale, mottled red. The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by the distant hum of traffic and Lily's soft splashing. The officer looked at Brenda, his expression now one of cool, detached authority. "So, to be clear, You called us here to report a trespasser on property that is not, in fact, part of your association? Brenda stammered, trying to regain her composure. But, she's using the community pool. I've seen her here before. Her voice was shrill, desperate. Aunt Carol sighed. Brenda, this isn't the community pool. This is my backyard. It's a pool for my family and friends. She gestured to the iron gate at the back of the yard, which opened to a small, private driveway leading to our house, a fact Brenda must have conveniently ignored for years. I saw the rage and humiliation flash across Brenda's face. She looked at me, then at Aunt Carol, her eyes full of a furious, wounded pride. The officer stepped forward, his tone shifting from professional to a more direct, no-nonsense warning. Ma'am, filing a false report is a serious offense. You've wasted our time and created a public disturbance based on a complete lack of understanding of your own neighborhood's boundaries. Since the trespassing occurred on private property, this is a civil matter. However, the harassment and false report are not. He pulled out his citation pad. I'm issuing you a citation for filing a false police report. It's a $200 fine. You can dispute it in court, but I'd recommend you take a closer look at your association's map. Brenda's mouth hung open, her perfectly coiffed hair seeming to deflate. The other residents, who had been whispering amongst themselves, now watched in stunned silence as the sheriff handed her the citation. Her carefully constructed facade of power and authority crumbled right there in the afternoon sun. She looked at the ticket, her hands trembling. Her face, once a mask of superiority, was now a portrait of defeat. She couldn't even manage a retort, a sharp retort, or a snide comment. She just stood there, speechless. The defeat was so profound it was almost sad. Almost. My heart, which had been pounding so hard, began to slow down, a sense of quiet triumph settling over me. The world righted itself, at least for a moment. The two officers, their duty done, tipped their hats and got back in their patrol car, leaving Brenda to stand alone in the middle of the street, the slip of paper in her hand a heavy burden. The other residents, sensing the show was over, began to disperse, casting quick, sympathetic glances at me and Aunt Carol, and avoiding Brenda's gaze entirely. I looked at Aunt Carol, a warm smile spreading across my face. You knew all along, didn't you? I asked, my voice full of gratitude. She gave a small, knowing shrug. I've tried to tell her. She just never listened. Some people only hear what they want to hear, dear. Her words were a gentle reminder of the futility of arguing with someone who has already made up their mind. As for Brenda, she finally moved, turning slowly and shuffling back to her own house, the sound of her defeat echoing in the quiet street. The finality of the moment was palpable. Her reign as the self-appointed queen of the neighborhood was over, her power stripped away not by a grand gesture, but by a simple, inconvenient truth. It was a beautiful thing to witness. I went back to the pool, and this time, Lily's giggles returned, her innocence a welcome balm after the conflict. The water felt cleaner, the sun warmer. This was my home, and for the first time, it truly felt like it belonged to us. This experience, while stressful, had a strange, cathartic quality. It was a testament to the fact that integrity, even in the face of petty tyranny, is its own reward. And in the end, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Was Brenda's behavior a product of a flawed system, or was it a reflection of her own character? Is there a line between enforcing rules and outright harassment? What do you think is the right and wrong here?